Hello one and all, welcome to today's Geek Talk. Today we are going to talk about how long Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 1 actually was. We know from a general sense that it should take place between 9 to 10 months, considering that it starts at the end of autumn and ends at the end of summer when Sozin's comet arrives. But for the fun of it, and also because I have tons of time and I'm kind of a nerd about these sort of things, let's put it to the test. Let's look through each episode of Avatar Book 1 and see if it actually maps out. If you want to know the answer straight away, just skip ahead to this time code here. Otherwise, continue on with the video. Also, I can't believe I have to do this, but if you haven't seen The Last Airbender, you should not be watching a video about the complete timeline of Avatar, and there's an obvious spoiler warning. Believe me, there's people who actually need that active spoiler warning in the comment section, even though it's clearly going to be very spoiler-y. Spoilery? Is that a word? Spoilerly, yeah.
First, let's set a few ground rules. 1. We'll be using the Gregorian 12-month calendar system. Airbender is largely based on Chinese culture, and within the library episode in Book 2, it would seem that the calendar is based on an East Asian calendar. However, when the gang figure out the date for the Day of Black Sun, it does not line up exactly with the Chinese calendar, but instead the Gregorian calendar, as the first day of the 8th month is quite distinctly August 1st. Whereas the date within the Chinese calendar would fall somewhere between late August and early September. Plus, the foundation for Airbender's calendar only uses 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth, whereas the Chinese calendar uses 5: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. So ultimately, what might be happening is a hybrid of the Gregorian and Chinese calendar, which sort of makes sense since the show is a bit of a hybrid between Chinese and American sensibilities. But instead of constantly translating between the Gregorian and Chinese calendar, we'll be sticking with just the Gregorian calendar to keep it simple, though we will note when there are discrepancies. Ultimately, this is only a small facet and won't really matter in the end, as we're only looking for a total day count rather than a specific designation for dates. 2. We will base a lot of this examination on Appa's travel time and the layout of the Avatar world and its globe. For a majority of this breakdown, we'll be using the 2D map designed by S.N. Henry and the 3D globe designed by Alyssa Christopher on DeviantArt. 3. When referencing years and time periods, we'll be using the air genocide construct used over on the Avatar wiki. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. Book 1. The Boy in the Iceberg. Day 1. November 29th. While hunting and gathering, Katara and Sokka discover Aang and his flying bison Appa. When they uncover the boy in the iceberg, a big beam shoots into the sky, which is also seen by a banished Fire Nation prince named Zuko, who is searching for the Avatar. Day 2, November 30th. Aang goes back to Katara and Sokka's home, where he has fun and games, eventually uncovering a Fire Nation trap with Katara, which leads Zuko to the Southern Water Tribe village.
Okay, time out. It's a little hard to determine the days when Avatar Aang is in the south. Those who live on the poles in our own world don't really have the same perceptions of day and night as we do, people who are closer to the equator. For instance, I live in California, so relatively speaking, 12 hours of the day, sun is up like it is right now, and then 12 hours a day, sun is gone. But people who live close to the poles, because of the way the globe works and the way that, you know, the sun, we as the earth revolve around the sun, those places, for instance, like in Alaska, can sometimes see the sun for months at a time, and their nighttime isn't really nighttime, it's just the sun kind of dipping close to the horizon but never quite getting there. For example, in the summer they can go 80 days of just having the sun out straight, sometimes called the midnight sun, because, you know, even though it's midnight at certain points or nighttime, the sun is still out.
So I think I got midnight sun madness.
Same for the winter. There's times where they don't see the sun at all. Really interesting place to live. If you guys live in Alaska, let me know, because that's really weird to me. But it's kind of complicated. Not really. I kind of explained it just now. But I swear to goodness, the rest of the video is not this complicated. But just I should put that out there because right now we're in the South Pole of the Avatar world. So day and night phases are kind of strange.
Book 1. The Avatar Returns. Day 2, November 30th. Aang and Katara return to the village to an angry Sokka who blames Aang for alerting the Fire Nation to their presence. Katara argues that it's not entirely Aang's fault back, but the Avatar agrees to leave. Night 2. Now some of you might say, how the heck is it night too? The sun is still out in these scenes. You would be right, but as Antoine was saying before, living on the poles is a strange affair. The sun hardly ever rises or sets, as it seems to do for those who live closer to the equator. Instead, for large portions of the year, the sun dips close to the horizon but never crosses it, at least for a few months. One can say the same for the South Pole and Airbender. Though it's not technically nighttime in the traditional sense, it is technically nighttime. Gosh, we hope it's making sense. We promise this whole video won't be this confusing throughout. Now, some of you might ask, how does Antoine determine this is nighttime to begin with? And honestly, the only distinction is between the orange sky, which seems to denote day, and the more grayish purplish sky, which seems to denote night. In any case, Zuko and the Fire Nation show up looking for Aang and threaten the Southern Water Tribe. When Aang is afraid for the tribe's safety, he gives himself up to the Fire Nation. Zuko takes Aang aboard his ship, where the Avatar escapes, eventually activating his Avatar state for the first time in nearly 100 years. Day 3, December 1st. After escaping, the gang agrees to travel to the North Pole together, where Aang can find a master and train with waterbending in his journey to become a fully realized Avatar. Book 1. The Southern Air Temple.
Appa, yip yip!
Before going forward, a few times in this show, we have to determine the travel periods for Appa the Flying Bison. Now granted, Appa and some of the other characters in the series kind of move at the speed of plot, but just so we can have a basis and a foundation for all of this, we're gonna base this on a particular episode called the Waterbending Master, where the determination of speed between two locations is kind of distinctly determined. And it'll be the piece that we use throughout this entire video series. It's gonna be the basis for all travel unless otherwise stated specifically within the context of the show. But it becomes very apparent when Katara says,
Look, we're all just a little tired and cranky because we've been flying for 2 days straight.
Putting us at 2 days between these 2 points on the map. So anytime we do any kind of location stuff, that is what we are using to determine all of that.
Using the S.N. Henry map, this means that travel from the Northern Air Temple to the Northern Water Tribe takes 2 days with no rest. We'll even go a step further and say it would take 3 days had the gang rested. With that out of the way, we would say it takes a total of 2 days for the gang to travel from the Southern Water Tribe to the Southern Air Temple, with the group taking a rest at the southern coastal tip of the Air Temple Island at the end of Day 3, which means we start the episode on the morning of Day 4, December 2nd. While the gang makes their way to the Air Temple, Zuko must repair his ship, where he encounters Commander Zhao. Meanwhile, the gang reaches the Air Temple and explore, while Zhao makes a proclamation that,
by year's end, the Earth Kingdom capital will be under our rule.
Which will become our first timeline discrepancy. If we take this statement on face value, this means Zhao believes Ba Sing Se will be overtaken by the end of the year 99 AG, or the Year of the Goat. But we know that the Fire Nation fails in overtaking Ba Sing Se until the following year in 100 AG, the Year of the Monkey. Now, of course, this can simply be written off as Zhao being an overzealous commander, or it could mean that Avatar's annual calendar starts sooner than the Gregorian calendar. But for the rest of the episode, we remain in the same day as Zuko challenges and defeats Zhao in Agni Kai, and Aang gets scary in his Avatar state, only to be quelled by the power of Katara's compassion. Book 1. The Warriors of Kyoshi.
Appa, yip yip!
To determine the space between our last episode and this one, the greatest piece of evidence comes with Zuko's own map when he claims Aang is
Clearly a master of evasive maneuvering.
If we look at the map, it's marked with 7 spots, which to us shows 6 different days. And we know that on day 5, Zuko was at port, facing off against Zhao on the bottom right corner of the map. The map also aligns with where Zuko and Aang are both headed, Kyoshi Island. Now, this travel pattern might not make sense because the distance between the Southern Air Temple and Kyoshi Island would indicate that Appa could travel there within 2 or 3 days. But this makes more sense when Sokka says to Aang,
You have no idea where you're going, do you?
and then later complains that,
We just made a pit stop yesterday.
So with all of this factored in, I'd say the journey picks up around day 9, December 7th. The gang arrive at Kyoshi Island, where the gang are captured but released after Aang reveals himself as the Avatar. But word travels fast and his whereabouts are revealed to the Fire Nation on Night 9. Zuko's cook reveals the location of Aang on Kyoshi Island. Day 10, December 8th. The gang spends the day on Kyoshi Island, where Aang is treated like a celebrity. But the fun and games are cut short by another attack by Zuko and the Fire Nation. After a fight that leaves Kyoshi Island in flames, Aang uses the Unagi to douse the fires and the gang escapes to journey another day. Book 1. The King of Omashu.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it takes 3 days to travel from Kyoshi Island to Omashu with rest. Though the distance can likely be traveled in less time without rest, nothing within the opening of the episode suggests the gang is tired or labored. Therefore, we start this episode on day 13, December 11th. The context of this episode is very simple and all happens within a single day. After being arrested, Aang is challenged by the King of Omashu, who turns out to be his long-lost friend, Bumi, from nearly 100 years prior. After completing 3 tests that force Aang to think outside of the box, the gang continue their journey. Lost Adventures, Be Calm. Occasionally we'll have side comics that take place in between the episodes, and Lost Adventures, Be Calm is the first one that has a distinct place in the timeline.
Appa, yip yip!
Considering the mountain ranges on the map at the start of the comic, we assume the events all take place before the gang meets Haru, so this must be a day before, putting us at day 15, December 13th. The comic is only 2 pages long and takes place over the course of a few minutes to an hour most. Book 1. Imprisoned.
Appa, yip yip!
I would say it takes somewhere around 3 days to travel from Omashu to Haru's village with rest, so we start this episode on day 16, December 14th. During a morning breakfast of nuts, the gang finds Haru, an earthbender from a nearby village. Haru runs away and the gang follows him, realizing earthbending is not allowed in what is a Fire Nation-controlled Earth colony. The gang says they can help and stay the night with Haru's mother, but after Haru earthbends to save an elderly man, the next day, day 17th, December 15th, he is taken by the Fire Nation. Katara cooks up a plan to get herself arrested so she can free Haru from the Fire Nation prison,
Earthbending style!
but fails astronomically.
Let us fight for our freedom!
Night 17. The gang cook up a new plan, using coal to give the Earthbenders the ammunition to fight back. Day 18. But even with a sound plan, the Earthbenders are too defeated to do anything. But Haru, who is inspired by Katara, leads the attack. When the Fire Nation Warden counterattacks, it rallies the rest of the Earthbenders into a fight that eventually frees them from Fire Nation's slavery. Book 1. The Spirit World.
Appa, yip yip!
The distance between the Fire Nation Island Jail and Heibai's Forest looks like a 2-day travel, which brings us to day 20, December 18th. The gang comes upon a burned village. Aang feels bad he spent 100 years letting the world go to ruin. Meanwhile, Iroh takes a break. Zuko gets uncomfortable. The gang is found by an elder who requests help for his village, which is being ravaged by a vengeful spirit named Heibai. The gang visits the village as Iroh is kidnapped by Earthbenders. Night 20. Aang fights Heibai but fails to quell the spirit's anger as it takes Sokka into the forest. Aang gives chase but is knocked out, transported to the spirit world. Meanwhile, Zuko finds his uncle is missing. Day 21, December 19th. Zuko trails his uncle, who's leaving him clues. Night 21. Zuko finds his uncle and helps him escape the Earthbenders. Meanwhile, Aang finally helps Heibai, freeing Sokka and all the others that were lost.
You were trapped in the spirit world for 24 hours.
Aang tells Katara and Sokka that he must meet with Avatar Roku, to which Katara replies,
But the solstice is tomorrow.
Now you may have noticed there has been a calendar icon in the bottom corner of the video. This very episode is what helped me determine this date. Now granted, as we've said before, this is not a perfect alignment to our own calendar. It's just a way that we all can kind of understand and grasp the timeline of Avatar. But the reason for it is because the winter solstice, at least in our world, in our calendar system, falls around December 21st or the 22nd. And that's the reason why in this episode, when Katara says that the next day is the winter solstice, we know that this current episode is December 20th and our next day will be December 21st.
Book 1, Avatar Roku.
Appa, yip yip!
It only seems like it takes a single day, or even a half day, to travel from Heibai's Forest to Crescent Island, putting us at day 22, December 20th. As the gang travels to Roku's island, Zuko gives chase. Again. After some masterful flying from Appa and a run-in with Zhao, the gang barely escapes. The gang runs through Roku's temple where they meet Shu, who says,
A few weeks ago, an amazing thing occurred. The statue of Avatar Roku. its eyes began to glow.
Which means within our timeline, we should be at least 3 weeks into the show. After another run-in with Zuko and the other firebenders, Aang finally meets Roku, who explains to him that
Sozin's comet will return by the end of this summer.
Which gives us a ticking time bomb. Better hurry up and learn those elements, Aang. Summer's end is only 8 months away. Book 1. The Waterbending Scroll.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it takes somewhere around 3 days to travel from Crescent Island to the trading village with rest. So we start this episode on day 25. December 23rd. At the start of the episode, Aang freaks out and Sokka tells him,
I'm sure you can master 3 more elements by next summer.
establishing that we are still late in the year 99 AG, meaning our previous timeline discrepancy could have just been that, a discrepancy. Aang still freaks out, saying,
I haven't even started waterbending and we're still weeks away from the North Pole.
we'll have to remember that weeks away quote for later. The gang finds a lake for Katara to train Aang with, while Zuko does some training of his own. The gang go to a swap meet where they meet some shady pirates that Katara steals a scroll from. Night 25. Disgruntled that she can't get the water whip technique just right, Katara does some late night practicing with her stolen waterbending scroll, where Zuko finds and captures her alongside the vengeful pirates. Day 26, December 24th. Aang and Sokka find that Katara is missing. Before they start their search, they're captured by pirates. A 3-way standoff between Fire Nation, pirates, and the gang culminates in another escape off into another sunset for Aang, Sokka, and Katara. Book 1. Jet.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it only takes a single day to travel from the standoff with the pirates to Jet's forest with rest. So we start this episode on day 27, December 25th. Sokka advises the group to travel by foot because Appa's too noticeable, saying that his instincts know best. The gang makes fun of his instincts as they run into a Fire Nation camp. After a fight, the group is saved by a rebel named Jet. Night 27. The gang follow Jet back to his camp, where they meet his roughneck friends. Sokka doesn't trust him though. Aang and Katara just think he's jealous. Day 28, December 26th. Sokka joins Jet and his friends on a morning raid, only to find out they're attacking a helpless old man. Sure, he's Fire Nation, but it's still pretty messed up. Sokka takes issue and tells Aang and Katara, but neither believe him, and they continue trusting in Jet. Night 28. Jet sets up his plan to blow up the dam near his old village. Though he'll achieve revenge against the Fire Nation who occupy his old home, he'll kill his own people in the process. Day 29, December 27th. After Jet sets everyone to a task, Aang and Katara eventually find out the repercussions of Jet's actions, but it's too late. Luckily, Sokka is able to get the village dwellers out before their homes are covered in water. Book 1. The Great Divide. We don't have to cover this one. All you have to know is that it takes a day to travel from Chet's forest to the Great Divide, and it's another day for all the shenanigans that go on between Snooty Tootie's group and Burly Girly's squad in the canyon, putting us on Day 30, December 28th.
Oh, you babies can go a day without food. Would you rather be hungry or dead?
Book 1. The Storm.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it only takes 2 days to travel from the Great Divide to the fishing village. So we start this episode on... The episode starts off with Aang having a bad dream as his past catches up to him. Day 33, December 31st. A majority of the episode plays in flashback, as Aang comes to terms with what he did 100 years prior, and Zuko's backstory is revealed through a story told by Iroh after the crew ask why the kid is so messed up to begin with. Night 33. This all culminates in The Storm, where Aang saves Sokka and Zuko chooses to save his crew over chasing the Avatar. Aww, character development. Book 1. The Blue Spirit.
Appa, yip yip!
There's no way it takes more than a day to get from the fishing village to the Pohuai. Yeah, that. So this episode has to start on the same night as the previous, Night 33, December 31st. Zhao recruits the Yu Yan archers to capture the Avatar. Day 34, January 1st. After being in a storm, Sokka and Katara are super sick. So Aang goes to look for some help, finding an old medicine woman who tells the Avatar he has to find some frozen frogs to help his friends. But before Aang can go looking, he's captured by the Yuyan archers. Night 34. After Aang is brought to Zhao, the commander makes a speech, stating that
this is the year Sozin's comet returns to grant us its power!
Let's look up the date. Yep, checks out. So we can say rather confidently that we are officially in 100 AG, within both the Gregorian calendar and the Avatar, quote, Chinese calendar. In any case, with the help of the Blue Spirit, who turns out to be Zuko, Aang escapes the stronghold, leading to Day 35, January 2nd. Aang waits for Zuko to wake up, we assume to make sure he's alright. Oh, Aang, you sweetie. After having a heart-to-heart, Zuko attacks Aang, and the episode ends on a somber tone.
Did you make any new friends?
No, I don't think I did.
Book 1. The Fortune Teller.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it doesn't take more than a day for Appa to travel from the stronghold to the Makapu village, putting us at Day 36, January 3rd. After meeting a villager who's dodging a platypus bear, Katara and Aang become interested in meeting a fortune teller who'd told the man he'd have a safe journey. Sokka is skeptical, but goes along with it. Once they arrive at the village, Katara becomes obsessed with her future, and Aang becomes obsessed with his romantic future with Katara. Sokka remains a skeptic. And it's the last straw when Aunt Wu, the fortune teller, says the village won't be destroyed by the volcano Mount Makapu, when it actually will. Night 36. Aang and Sokka rally the village, using the Earthbenders to save the village from being destroyed.
Man, sometimes I forget what a powerful bender that kid is.
Day 37, January 4th. The next day, the village thanks Aang, and Aunt Wu tells the gang that
You have the power to shape your own destiny.
Book 1. Bato of the Water Tribe.
Appa, yip yip!
Again, it can't take more than a day to go from the Makapu village to the Abbey, so only a single day has passed. Day 38, January 5th. When Aang finds a Water Tribe weapon, Sokka goes into Sherlock Holmes mode, eventually finding some Water Tribe shipwreckage. Meanwhile, Zuko and Iroh are introduced to June, the bounty hunter, who is looking for stowaways. Bonus. In a deleted scene, Sokka says the moss growing on the boat indicates the ship has been there for about 3 months. And later in the scene, Katara tells Aang that her dad left the Water Tribe about 2 years ago. Night 38. Bato of the Water Tribe finds the gang by the wreckage as Zuko and Iroh employ June. When Bato meets up with the gang, Sokka says,
It's been over 2 years since we've seen Dad.
Day 39, January 6th. The gang gets into a fight and splits up after Aang hides a letter from Katara and Sokka's father. June, Zuko, and Iroh track the Water Tribe siblings to a nearby village and captures them. But Aang saves the day again. Book 1. The Deserter.
Appa, yip yip!
Travel between the Abbey and the Fire Festival shouldn't take more than a day, putting us at... On the first afternoon, the gang decides to attend a nearby fire festival. Night 40, January 7th. The gang disguises themselves at the festival. Aang is uncovered as the Avatar, so they book it. One of Zhang Zhang's supporters saves them from a near capture, and it's he who introduces them to the Firebending Master. Day 41, January 8th. Thanks to some help from Roku's spirit, Zhang Zhang agrees to train Aang, but the boy Avatar is not ready and is too eager, burning Katara in the process. Aang does a bit of redemption and understanding after fighting Zhao, but Zhang Zhang disappears and Aang is still without a master. Lost Adventures, Relics.
Appa, yip yip!
This is probably the longest trek for the gang in the entire stretch of the first season. We would say it takes 4 or 5 days with rest to travel from the Fire Festival to the Northern Air Temple, putting us at Day 46, January 13th. While visiting a Northern Earth Kingdom village, a merchant is selling supplies, one of them being an old Airbender pendant. The merchant tells Aang that the pendant isn't old or ancient, and that it was sold to him mere days prior. Aang, excited by the news, follows the merchant's directions, despite Sokka and Katara's protests. Night 46. Unfortunately, it was all just a trap laid out by Zhao, who nearly captures Aang, but the last Airbender makes his escape. Day 47th, January 14th. Sokka and Katara, worried about Aang, who's been gone all night, find him alone on a cliff. They console him, attributing his sadness to the area, which is a reminder of the people he lost. Book 1. The Northern Air Temple.
Appa, yip yip!
We would say it takes another day for the gang to get to the northern tip of the continent where this episode takes place, putting us at Day 48, January 15th. A traveler tells a tale about airwalkers to the north. Aang thinks he's talking about hundreds of years prior, but the storyteller says,
What are you prattling about, child? Great-grandpappy saw the airwalkers last week.
Hey, this story's sounding a lot like the Relic comics. Or does the Relics comic sound like this? In any case, Aang can't contain himself, leading us to Day 49, January 16th. Sokka and Katara try to quell Aang's excitement. He's only going to set himself up for disappointment. When they arrive at the temple, there are no airbenders, just people flying around with gliders. Aang is outraged when he sees how they've changed the temple, but he comes around when he realizes the people are outcasts, being forced to create new inventions for the Fire Nation, and the gang helps fight off the encroaching Fire Nation force.
Before we get to the end of this video, I should take note of the Lost Adventure comics that didn't fit very nicely in between the episodes. That includes Water War, Don't Blow It, and Fruit Stand Freestyle. The greatest comic you'll ever read. The good thing about us calculating travel time is that these comics can fit into any of those spaces within their adventure. We don't know exactly when because these comics don't specify timeline or give us maps like they did with BCom, but generally speaking, we can say that these can just slot in wherever you want them to go.
Book 1, The Waterbending Master.
Appa, yip yip!
This is really easy. Katara straight up says,
Look, we're all just a little tired and cranky because we've been flying for 2 days straight.
Which has been the basis of our travel time this entire video. So it's very easy to determine that we are on Day 51, January 18th. After Appa nearly falls asleep at the wheel and gets caught in waterbend ice, the gang finally arrive at the Northern Water Tribe, which, a tribe? We think they're a bit more than that, but that's a different topic altogether.
The Water Tribe is a great nation.
You see? Great nation. It should be the Northern Water Nation. We agree on something, Zhao. Speaking of which, Admiral Zhao is preparing his forces to go against the Northern Water Tribe, saying,
The Avatar needs to master waterbending. He's looking for a teacher.
Which is in line with the Lost Adventures comic, putting him north of the Earth Kingdom continent. Night 52. The Water Tribe welcomes the gang as they celebrate Yue's birthday, the princess of the nation. Meanwhile, Zhao recruits Zuko's soldiers for his own invasion force against the Water Tribe. Day 53. Aang gets some waterbending training. Katara is denied because she has boobs, while Sokka puts on his charm for Yue. Night 53. Zhao totally attempts to assassinate Prince Zuko. Holy shit, man, that's pretty dark. Meanwhile, Sokka's advances on Yue are denied. Ouch. Aang trains Katara in private, and Master Pakku finds out, denying the boy Avatar further training in waterbending. Day 54, January 20th. The next day, Pakku agrees to train Aang again if Katara apologizes. But after he insults the little girl, she instead challenges him to a fight. She loses, but proves that she has some skill. When Pakku realizes Katara is related to a long-lost love, he softens to her. Meanwhile, Zuko isn't dead at all. Hooray! Night 54. After hearing about Katara's Gran having an arranged marriage with Pakku, Yue runs away in tears. Sokka goes after her, and they do some kissy-kissy, but Yue says they can't be together because she's engaged. Day 55, January 21st. Aang gets some more training, now with Katara at his side, while Zhao sets course for the north. Book 1, The Siege of the North, Part 1.
Appa, yip yip!
So now, we have to consider how long it takes for the Fire Nation fleet to go from their port to the Northern Water Tribe. Personally, I say it can't be over 3 days, if we assume that Appa's standard speed is only marginally faster than a Fire Nation ship. So that would put us at Day 58, January 24th. Katara kicks butt and becomes one of Pakku's top students while Ash in the air signals the Fire Nation's arrival. And the first day of battle begins. Night 58. The Fire Nation cease their attack as night falls because the waterbenders are stronger at night with the moon. They anchor their ships and wait for the next daybreak. Aang is completely exhausted and finds the task of fighting the fleet impossible. Meanwhile, Zuko goes on a covert mission to capture Aang during the night. Aang looks for wisdom and assistance by entering the spirit world. While he meditates, Zuko shows up and has a fight with Katara. Zuko's on the losing end, until Day 59, January 25th.
You rise with the moon. I rise with the sun.
Zuko captures Aang and takes him away, leading us to Book 1, The Siege of the North, Part 2. Zuko makes away with Aang's body like a bandit as the boy Avatar ventures into the spirit world. Meanwhile, the Fire Nation fleet relaunches their attack, eventually breaking down the fortress walls. The fight continues all the way through to Night 59. It seems the Fire Nation should pull back as the Waterbenders grow in power, but Zhao takes a calculated risk, infiltrating the Spirit Garden and capturing Tui, the Moon Spirit. His plan is to kill it, and with it, the power of the moon, the source of Water Tribe's power. After escaping Zuko again, Aang returns to the Water Tribe where everybody is mad at Zhao. And I mean everyone.
Whatever you do to that spirit, I'll unleash on you tenfold. Let it go now!
1, 2... But of course, Zhao doesn't listen and kills Tui the Moon Spirit. And then we get some film noir Avatar for a few minutes. Iroh goes ham. Aang merges with La, the Ocean Spirit, and goes ham. Zuko faces Zhao and goes ham. And Yue sacrifices herself for Tui and becomes the new Moon Spirit, also going ham. As the moon is restored, Zhao is defeated and the Ocean Spirit takes him down below to do things to him we can't even begin to imagine. Day 60, January 26th. Day breaks. The Fire Nation retreats, the gang is victorious, and we get a teaser for the villain of the next book.
I have a task for you.
And that's it. If you're coming in from the beginning of the video and you skipped ahead, the total outcome of the How Long is Avatar Book 1 is 60 days, 2 months. If you're scratching your head and you're like, what? I thought the whole show took place over 3 months. Go ahead and go back to the beginning of the video and see some of the explanations presented. Otherwise, that's it. We have a very solid foundation for Book 1, and we can kind of go forward with this little system that we got going on for Book 2 and Book 3. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you think you would like to see Part 2 of the video and you want to be notified, hit subscribe. If you want to see the video early, you can join my email alert list for my YouTube channel. Otherwise, that is it. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace, love, and remember, be water, my friend.